All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We're talking about the Las Vegas Raiders in tonight's video. I don't care how you want to chop it. I don't care how you want to cut it. The Raiders were missing their two best players in tonight's or this afternoon's football game, and Max Crosby and Devontae Adams. You can cut it however you want. Maybe it wasn't a pretty win. Maybe it wasn't a sexy win because, folks, if you watch the game, it wasn't either of those two things. But 20-16 home victory against the Cleveland Browns. This is the Raiders team fresh off a disastrous home loss against the Carolina Panthers. I'm going to take it because you fast forward a couple of weeks from now, you fast forward honestly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Who do we appreciate? You fast forward any amount of weeks and nobody's really given a nitpicky response to this victory. The defense really showed up. We got to figure out this run game. Gardner Minshew didn't do anything too crazy, but he did what he had to do to get this victory. And honestly, like, a game like this afternoon is a game the Raiders have lost for consecutive seasons. So I'm just going to enjoy this win. I'm going to take this win. But before we get into tonight's video, if you guys enjoy it, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily Raiders and NFL content. Try and get this video to 100 likes, folks. That would mean the absolute world to me. So like we said, the Raiders, especially defensively, are missing a ton of pieces. And I get it. It's that point in the NFL season. We're about a month in, or we are a month into the season. And, everybody, it feels like, every team in the NFL has an important player injured. They have a position injured. And, that's the same thing with the Raiders. This afternoon specifically, you're missing Max Crosby. First game ever against the Cleveland Browns. You're also missing Malcolm Kuntz. You're missing Double D, Devon Diablo. You're missing Marcus Epps, the safety. It got off to a really rough start. The Browns were up 10-0 early on in the first quarter, but they finished defensively a really great football game. And I also want to say, I don't think Luke Getsy's the best offensive coordinator in the NFL. I don't think Gardner Minshew is the best offensive coordinator in the NFL. I don't think Gardner Minshew is the best quarterback in the NFL. But everybody did what they needed to do. And we'll get into this run game in just a second because it's still not perfect. In fact, it's still not even really that great if we're counting Zamir White. But outside of Zamir White, it's been pretty solid. So, extremely great end for the Raiders team, offense, but especially defense. They held the Browns offense scoreless for 7 consecutive possessions. And then you had Snowden, a fourth-year defensive end who had never appeared in a regular season game prior to this year. He was released by the Raiders in training camp. He sealed the game. He sealed the win with the game-winning sack towards pretty much the exact end of the football game because Cleveland was they're very close to scoring and winning that football game. Shout out to what's their kicker's name? Is it Dustin Hopkins for missing that extra point late on the game because the Raiders won 20-16. And if he had not have missed that extra point, folks, this game probably was going into overtime. But one of my favorite things about this game was the running back game. So Gardner Minshew, 14 of 24, 130 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I also don't really think the stat sheet, kind of correlates to how he played or, what the Raiders were able to do offensively. Once again, if you take the wide receiver number 1 off any team in the National Football League, they're typically going to struggle, or at the very least, you're going to see worse statistics specifically from your quarterback. So Jacoby Myers operating out of wide receiver 1 this afternoon, 5 catches, 49 yards. He had 10 total targets. Trey Tucker, 5 catches, 41 yards. Unfortunately, once again, the lack of production from Brock Bowers, or I shouldn't even say that, the lack of opportunities from Brock Bowers. He only saw 3 total targets, 2 catches, 19 yards, and all those players we just mentioned, Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, Harrison Bryant, and Brock Bowers, that was the only 4 Raiders players who caught a football in today's game. But we did see some nice running back production, all right? Alexander Madison, 5 carries, 60 total yards, including a 24-yarder. Zamir White, 17 carries for 50 yards. Not great. 2.9 yards per carry, especially if we factor in his 17-yard rush. I have a strong feeling that Zamir White will probably hit the bench for Alexander Mattison, which as a Zamir White fantasy football owner, I'm not too pleased about, but at this point, it's kind of, a given. DJ Turner had a beautiful 18-yard rushing touchdown. Brock Bowers had a beautiful 12-yard first down running the football. And then we also saw a nice little rushing touchdown from Mr. Trey Tucker in the absence of Devontae Adams. So, just offensively speaking, there's been no run game for the first 4 weeks of the season. This afternoon was a little bit different. 29 total carries, 152 yards, averaging 5.2 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns for the Raiders running the football. So, this week was a great change of pace. A lot of that had to do with Alexander Mattison and guys like Turner, Bowers, Trey Tucker getting carries, even not being running backs. But, this defense, man, they're extremely legit. And Max Crosby, one of the best defensive players in the National Football League, missed it. Morig had a beautiful interception. Spillane had 12 total tackles. Masterson had 6 total tackles. Palomau had not an interception. He had a beautiful sack. Morig interception. It was a really interesting defensive game. Just kind of, Snowden with a sack, Robinson with a half a sack, Wilkins with a half a sack. And, even Wilkins is a really good example. Christian Wilkins was a huge addition for this Raiders defense this past offseason. He technically, stat sheet wise, only had half a tackle, which included, an assisted tackle, which included half a sack. But you watch the game, you watch the film, Christian Wilkins is certainly making an impact here. What they were able to do with Deshaun Watson and Jerome Ford and the running back room in general, and Deshaun only threw for 176 yards, averaging only 5.5 yards per reception or per completion, 1 touchdown and that 1 interception. And the Browns technically ran 22 times for 92 yards, which would equate for a 4.2 yards per carry. But Jerome Ford, for example, ran 10 times for 58 yards, which sounds like a really good statistical game. But he had a 35-yard run. I'm not a great mathematician here, but factor out that 35-yard run from Jerome Ford, and the Raiders' rushing defense was great. And honestly, the Raiders' defense is the reason they won this afternoon's football game. So, just kind of a rant ramble Raiders victory recap video for you guys. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily Raiders and NFL content. Try and get this video to 100 likes, folks. That would mean the absolute world to me. But comment down below, who is your player of the game from tonight's game? Peace.